All right, well, good morning and welcome to this week's episode of Ask the Pastor. My name is Ben Kennington. This is Pastor Ray Dye sitting here with me. And this week, our question is, what is the value of short-term missions?
I think this is a great question, and when you brought me this question just a day or so ago, I took about 60 seconds and just wrote down. I came up with 10 in about 60 seconds. There are probably many more, but I came up with 10 values or 10 benefits or whatever the case may be, however you want to say that, to short-term missions. So I'm going to kind of go through 10 quickly. You can just interrupt or, cut me off at whatever point if you've got a question or want to add something to it. So I want to start with just one value and benefit, number one, of being that we're just being obedient to the Great Commission. So I think we just root and ground ourselves there that Jesus said in Matthew 28, go and make disciples of all nations. I think that's a responsibility of the church and every individual in the church. So starting off, we are being obedient to the Great Commission of Jesus. Number two, when you go on a short-term mission trip, what you don't necessarily see before you go is how you're going to be able to encourage the local church in whatever that foreign country might look like, or even domestic. Okay, let's say you're even going to somewhere domestically, Montana or New York or something like that. You can go and partner with that local church and really encourage them in the mission that they're in. And when you go overseas, when you go abroad, there is certainly a level of encouragement and support that you bring those local missionaries in what they're trying to do and establish a new church there or whatever the case may be. Number three, I think this one's crucial. Short-term missions produce long-term missionaries. Generally speaking, somebody doesn't just say, I'm going to be a long-term missionary, meaning like I'm going to go live in Africa, South America, Honduras, whatever the case may be. I'm just going to go live there.
It's a pretty big jump.
Right.
Yeah.
So generally speaking, those individuals who give their life to being international missionaries, it started with a short-term local mission trip, like it was a 3-day or a 5-day or 7-day, something like that. Number four, when you go on especially an international mission trip to like a third world country, you're going to see things that you don't necessarily see in the United States, not just in their culture, like cultural differences, but like levels of poverty. There are, how do I say this? When we look around, we see poverty here in America, but when you go to, like, for example, I've been to Africa. When you go to Africa, where we went in Africa to Malawi, there were levels of poverty that I was not prepared for mentally to see. Like, for example, there were children on the side of the road eating mice, dead mice, and they were trying to sell those dead mice for other forms of food. I was not prepared, and you see pictures of it right online, but it's different looking at it on a screen, sitting in the comfort of your home, versus when you're there and it's 360 degrees around you and that picture comes to life and that picture has a voice and a name. It's very different. So here's what I want to say in that. Number four was it gives you a new appreciation for the blessings that you do have and how God has richly blessed you here in America. Like, you don't look at fast food the same. You don't look at your home and electricity and running water the same way. So it gives you just a new appreciation for the blessings that you do have here in America. Number five, and these are not in any sort of like order of greater importance or less importance or anything like that. Number five, when you go to a country like that, in a lot of situations, so some international mission trips, you're going to go where the gospel is being preached. There are churches that are formed. People know Jesus, right? They know of Jesus. And you can go there for different, the purpose of that mission trip may not be to go to necessarily reach an unreached people group. It could be to go build a church or something like that, okay? So but those people have heard of Christ. There are other times where you can go on an international mission trip and you're going to get to see people come to Christ who have never heard of Jesus. So that's what I want to say. Number 5 is when you get to encounter people who have never heard of Jesus, it is life-changing, because we take for granted there's a church on every corner, living in the Bible Belt of America. Everybody knows Jesus. Everybody's heard of Jesus. Most of the people that we encounter believe that they're going to heaven, and they've heard of all of these things, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
There's crosses all over the place. When you go to a country who has never heard of Jesus, they've never seen a Bible, they've maybe heard of a Bible maybe once, it's just unbelievable how those people respond to the gospel. People here in America, the statistic is you have to hear the gospel over and over and over and over and over and over again, because it's on every corner. We grow up with it. Mm-hmm. Again, I want to reference when I went to Africa, I was walking through a village and some of the people in the village were shouting, and they spoke a language called Chichewa. Mm-hmm. And I knew very, very, very little of Chichewa. But I had a translator with me. I had a translator with me the entire time I was there. And his name was Soko. Still remember him. Thought his name was so cool, Soko. So I would ask Soko, what are they saying? And they're chanting, screaming to all the neighbors, he has a Bible, he has a Bible.
Really?
So then I would come into like a little village, to a hut, and Soko would tell them, go get your friends, go get your families. He has a Bible, he has something to tell you. So, and then those people would respond to the gospel in a way that I've never seen an American respond to the gospel. They received the gospel with such joy and such hope. I mean, I've never seen an American receive Jesus like they received Jesus. It was literally the greatest news anybody could have ever brought to them. Here, when you tell people about Jesus, it's like, well, that's cool.
Yeah.
Thanks for telling me. Mm-hmm. There, it was like, you had just brought them the cure to cancer, the cure to their world, their problems. It's different. So highly encourage people to go on international mission trips such as that. So you get to see people accept Jesus in a way that is foreign in most cases to people in America. Number 6, you can interrupt me anytime. You have no idea how much you're going to grow in the process. So people that go on a first international mission trip, they often think, man, what is God going to do with me in Asia and Africa, South America? And God is going to use you there. Mm-hmm. But what people severely underestimate is what God's going to do in you on that mission trip. Mm-hmm. So God's going to grow you in the process. That's number 6. Number 7, the people that you go with are generally from your local church. You're going to build lifelong friendships and relationships that are formed through doing ministry together, because you could become very close during that process. Like when Africa, that was like a 20-something hour trip. I think it was like 24 hours or something. One flight was 17 hours. So you're sitting next to somebody from your church for 17 hours. You're either going to really like them or you're really going to dislike them at the end of that trip, right? But so every mission trip that I've gone on, I now have lifelong friends. And I've gone on trips with people from other churches, and I've built friendships with those people from other churches because doing ministry together. So you build relationships in the process. Number 8, I would say this, and I want to kind of go back to the reference of Africa. Like, why is it important that we go? I want to try to answer that question maybe a little bit. I asked Soko, my translator, why would we not just give you the money? Okay, because to go to Africa, it was a pretty expensive trip. It was like $4,000 to $5,000 per person. Mm-hmm. And we took like 10 of us. So it was like 50 grand to get our little group to Malawi, Africa. Mm-hmm. That's a lot of money. And I'm like, man, why would we not just pump $50,000 into this community?
Yeah,
right.
Indeed.
And what the missionary on the ground there said, which was not Soko, he was an American who's now living there, who had visited there like this process I was talking about. So I talked to him and I talked to Soko, and I was like, why don't we just give the community 50 grand? Mm-hmm. And he said, because that doesn't solve the spiritual problem. And truthfully, when they see an American walking through their village, you don't look like them, you don't smell like them, you don't talk like them, anything. Okay, they're African, you're American. Mm-hmm. When you show up with a message from halfway around the globe and you spent your hard-earned money to get there, they know that you spent your money and you traveled halfway around the world to tell them this. they know it's important.
Yeah.
So there's a level of importance there that they automatically see just by you being present. So whereas if it's just Soko walking through the village, in a sense, he looks like them. He is one. He's of their culture.
Yeah.
It's different. They hear it and they respond differently when it's somebody who has traveled there
Yeah.
to show them that I love you, I care about you, this message is important, and I've got something I need to tell you. So that's number 8. Number 9, by you going on a short-term mission trip from your local congregation, you can come back and encourage other people through your testimonies. So you can spread that Great Commission in your local church by you going. Very. And number 10, I would say it provides a spiritual reset. You're going to encounter God and you're going to encounter the Holy Spirit in a way that you don't most often in your local church, in a local setting, week by week. You're going to grow, you're going to experience God, you're going to see God work, you're going to see God move, you're going to come back on a spiritual high, you're going to be ready to go again, you're going to have kind of a spiritual reset in a sense that you don't really get on a normal Sunday. So there's probably 10 or 15 more reasons. That's 10 that I came up with in about 60 seconds just from my own experience going on mission trips. So, but I'll let you kind of interject here.
Yeah. So I guess I've never, first of all, I've never been on an international mission trip, never done anything, so it's kind of good. We got the two opposite sides here. But so one thing
that's going to change, by the way, soon.
Hopefully. I'm hoping to go on the one next year. But so the language barrier, is that not something that is really hard to overcome? I mean, are you constantly speaking through a translator? Does that make it harder to,
It's a good question.
Yeah.
So we just had a team come back from Africa. They went to Ghana. They actually spoke English in Ghana.
Okay.
Okay, so when we went to Honduras, they speak Spanish. You can actually pick up Spanish pretty quick. Okay, Spanish is not as hard to learn as what you might think. Now they talk fast and stuff like that, but we started picking up on a little bit of what they were saying. And if you really prepared, you could talk with them. You would still need a translator, but we actually used our phones. There were times in Honduras where we found ourselves without a translator.
Yeah.
We just used Google Translate, and I was talking to a little kid named Eddie, and I've got a picture of him on my wall now just because we built a relationship. I would adopt that kid tomorrow and bring him back if I could. But so I would talk into my phone and it would translate it into Spanish, and he would read it in Spanish, and then he would speak into the phone and it would translate it back in English, and we carried on an entire conversation. Didn't need a translator.
Yeah.
When I went to Malawi, when I went to Africa, again the language was Chichewa. That was a very well-ran mission trip in that the local missionary on the ground knew how many of us were coming on our team, and he had that many translators, so we each had our own translator. Wow. So they sent us off into a village, and we'll see you in a couple hours. Go share the love of Jesus. Go share the gospel. And it was just me and Soko, right? And we're walking through this village. We're walking up to houses. We're doing door-to-door evangelism. And there's all these hut houses, and then they would get their friends and family. And yes, everything went through a translator. And the first day is kind of rocky if you've never done it. It's like, okay, where do you learn, or how do you learn where to break off and stop talking? What the translator will tell you to do is, he says, say a whole sentence or say a couple of sentences or a paragraph, and then stop, and then he'll translate the paragraph. It's very hard for him to translate 2 or 3 words at a time. But if you can say a sentence or two, he can translate that, because it doesn't translate literally word for word. He might have to restructure the words. So it is a barrier, but it's not a barrier if you have a translator.
Not a big deal.
Not a big deal.
So then kind of back to the question a little bit. I mean, he's asking what is the value of it, and obviously you've established that there is value. There is value in this. But do you think that there are some mission trips that maybe don't have as much value because of the way that they're put on, or like
100%,
what do you think that
100%.
Well, what do you think makes it so?
I think there is a real danger to turn certain mission trips into vacations.
Yeah.
I think that's the number one danger in Americans going on short-term mission trips, that well, we're going to go to, I don't know, Europe. let me I don't want to use that example. I want to use a real example that I've really heard, okay?
Yeah.
So we moved here from Arkansas. There were churches from Arkansas going on short-term mission trips to Orange Beach. I'm not trying to be critical here. To each their own, you do that. But that's where we vacation.
Yeah.
Right? So some, I'm not saying everybody, but I'm saying that I think there's a potential there, at least, that people are going on vacation and not going on a mission trip.
Yeah.
I was invited to go to the Bahamas on a mission trip. Granted, the people in the Bahamas need Jesus too, okay?
Yeah, mm-hmm.
But if we're going to go do that, then it needs to be a mission trip, not a vacation.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying you can't go to Orange Beach on a mission trip, and I'm not saying you can't go to the Bahamas on a mission trip.
Absolutely.
But I'm saying if you're going to go to the Bahamas on a mission trip, then it needs to be a mission trip.
Yeah.
It needs to be about Christ, sharing the gospel, leading people to Jesus, or whatever the mission is, building the church, etc., etc., etc. I think there is a danger in mission trips to become a vacation.
Yeah. So I got one more thing for you, and you kind of touched on it already once, but I mean, you mentioned, the flight to get over there for a group of 10 people, and then places to stay and food. I mean, obviously it gets very expensive. It's a lot of money.
Yeah.
And you brought up that, why don't we just pump this money into the community? And so I get what you're saying with the whole, it's me, I'm coming to this other country, and they're seeing that. They're seeing how important this is to me. But so I guess what still doesn't make sense to me is you have, in most cases, you're going to a place with international missionaries, right? Like you're partnering with somebody.
Correct. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I guess the question is, why isn't it helpful for us to just send them the money or the resources necessarily that they need, or even to some extent, I mean, and I just saw this video when I was researching this, but one person brought up the fact that, like, okay, we go over and we build a center block school. Well, that money might have been better spent if you had basically contracted somebody in that community to already do it. It would help them out. It would still help the community out, and it would still help out maybe the missionaries over there. You know what I'm saying?
Sure. 100%. So I think every place is different culturally in that. Mm-hmm. Okay, so for example, we as a church just adopted Honduras, right? Missionaries on the ground that we're actually giving them money every single month. So a portion of our general tithes and offerings is now in a line item on our budget to support them, and they determine how to spend that money. Okay, so we do that, okay? But we also go and put our boots on the ground and physically support them by our presence there. So I think it's not an either or, I think it's a both and.
Absolutely.
Okay, so that's Honduras. Let me refer back to Africa, because I've been talking about Africa, okay? So Africa, they still want you to come and participate, and they want you to be boots on the ground, because the people really do respond differently there. But generally, when you adopt them as the church missionaries, you do start sending them money, and you do start supporting them, and then they utilize those funds with the local communities, so on and so forth. But here's the problem, because here's what I didn't understand before I started going on international mission trips. You don't just take a whole bunch of money and dump it into their society or into their village, let's say, okay? Because $50,000 would go and transform that village. But it's no different than handing a child, and bear with me here on this illustration, but it's no different than handing a child $50,000. They don't know the value of it. They haven't worked for it or anything else. So what you do is you create a dependency culture that, oh, well, then the Americans are just going to give us more money.
Yeah.
That's not what they're trying to do. What they're trying to do is not only reach them with the gospel, but they're trying to change a culture.
I see.
Okay? They're trying to, like, for example, in Africa, those missionaries were working alongside the village chiefs saying, if you will build a church, okay, we will give you funding and stuff like that, but you got to build the church. Like, we might be able to pay for the roof or whatever the case may be, but you're going to put your hard-earned, work, sweat, equity into this thing, and we're going to partner with you. And it develops it develops a culture of ownership, maybe that's the right way to say it. And then because of the ownership, there's value in it.
Absolutely.
There's no value in it if you just give them the money and then it's kind of like socialism.
Well, and I would say too, I mean, we've even experienced that on our own church front as far as, the various
100%.
remodels and stuff that we've done. I've talked to so many people who've just been like, it's, improved relationships, it's built, made friendships, and it's been people that have come and said, I'm going to invest after my 9 to 5, I'm going to invest hours after that to come and,
Right.
work for the church.
Right.
So,
I think it's a both and. We're not just going to just dump a bunch of money in there and then just let them do it. No. It has to kind of be overseen and it has to be structured for the protection of it to build all that like we've been talking about. But it's a both and. Like with Honduras, we're going to support them every single month to put money into that community, right, to better their situation, better that community.
yeah.
But we're also going to go and show them our physical support, and we're going to partner together with them by being present, 100%.
Absolutely. Well, I have one verse I want to leave us with, and then I'll let you finish
Sounds
it up if you want to. But it's Romans 10:14, or excuse me, Romans 10:14. And it says, "How then shall they call on him in whom they have not believed? And how shall they believe in him who they have not heard? And how shall they hear without a preacher? And how shall they preach unless they are sent?" So I think that should convict me. So
that's
yeah.
great. And the preacher there that Romans is talking about, it's not just a ordained pastor preacher. It is someone who is going to proclaim the gospel. So here is the commission. Here is how are they going to hear about Jesus unless we go? So here's the calling to you and I and to everyone listening and to all the people in all the churches around the world. We are to go and preach and share the love of Jesus Christ. We are to take the gospel to them and reach them with the gospel of Jesus Christ.
Absolutely.
How are they going to hear if we don't? They're not going to, is the point that Paul is making.
Exactly.
So it's good.
All right. Well, we appreciate you tuning in this week. Back same time next week. Send in those questions to askthepastor@ferrishill.org, and y'all have a great week.
See you next week.